Hey everybody, welcome back to Addiction and the Three Principles. My name is Greg Suki, here again with Harry Durbitsky. And today, I'm really happy to be joined by Linda Pettit. Really not sure what took us so long to get her on here, but this stands to be another really amazing talk today. I just love the discussions that we get going on here. And I'd like to remind everybody before we get started, before I pass it off to Harry, that I just have everybody muted to keep down on background noise. So if at any point you want to comment or ask a question, just please feel free to either unmute yourself, or in the participants tab, there's a raise hand feature. Just click on that and we'll get you in, because we want this to be a good discussion, not just Linda sitting there talking to all of us, you know. So with no more for me to get this started, I'll pass it off to Harry.
Yeah, I like the emphasis on our show is that we're in the living room collectively talking with a cup of coffee and sharing ideas. And that's right. And when Linda feels that, it brings out what I think Sid pointed to, which is the ordinariness and the naturalness of us as one unit, one being, and one spirit. And I can't explain that in words, but it is a feeling. And the last couple of shows we've had has had that feeling. So please share your own thoughts or questions and so on. It really uplifts Linda, uplifts the whole show. And in truth, Greg and I learn a ton from who participates. One of the interesting things with Linda was I have known her since what I would call the Bill era, and but before that, I was a little surprised that she actually specialized in addiction in the beginning of her career, a very multi-talented and faceted career, and also her husband, her first husband, who was a recovering alcoholic, sober for a bunch of years, 26 or so, but still something that was part of Linda's life. And I was touched by that she liked this topic, because I think it resonated with her from where she came from, which is a native Indian concept. We come from, and it is part of us, type of thing. The other thing that's impressed me with Linda is because she's post Sid Banks era, she naturally took to the three principles and to Bill, but she didn't do it like you might imagine. She didn't follow. She gravitated to where her heart took her. And that's one of the things I can emphasize to all of you, is Linda's inspiration is she's followed her own heart and what's turned her mind on. And because of that, she hasn't lost herself in the three principles. She's maintained her dignity and her integrity and her creativity. And so that I have really noticed, Linda. I really have liked that a tremendous amount about you, is you have maintained who you are in the three principles, rather than becoming another blanket on the three principles. So with that, and the topic is the spirit of recovery.
Wow. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I'm humbled. And I want to just say this, that I'm sitting at a very big computer screen, and I have to look up to look directly at you in the camera. And yet once in a while, I'm just so tempted to drop my eyes down and look at you all. So if it ever feels that I'm somehow looking down or away, it's because I'm just enjoying a minute of taking in your beautiful faces. I don't find myself drawn to doing a lot of these webinars, especially the kind where I just talk and talk and talk. And so I value that this is not that. And I'll share a few thoughts, and then I just love to hear what's on your minds. One of the Native American teachings that I'm aware of that I love so deeply and dearly is that of the circle, that as people come together in a circle, a council, it's not by accident. So it's not by accident that anyone is here on this call today, that there's something for all of us to learn from each other, but not necessarily from me. All I do is sit on the rim of the circle with you. So I know that I'm here to learn as much as to share a little bit that I've seen. I don't even know where to start. I started reading Harry's book this morning, Evolution of Addiction Recovery, and it just touched me so deeply. I felt like I was in tears all morning. And so I'm in that space right now, just feeling very, very, very moved. So I think I'll just start with talking about some of what really moved me. And one of them actually was an insight I think that you shared with Harry, Greg, and it made sense of a lot of things to me. There was a point in the book where you were pointing to that when people are thinking about taking a drink, the good feeling that they're searching for actually, or what they're searching for actually comes in the moment where they follow the thought to take a drink. It's not the actual taking of the drink itself. You could probably clarify, how you said that in a way that I can't, because of course I heard what I heard, but it opened up something really beautiful for me in thinking about why this three principles understanding has such personal meaning for me, and why it offers such hope to people who have lost their freedom. So when I was a young woman married to my husband who was in early recovery, and we started going to AA meetings and Al-Anon meetings together, one of the things I heard at a meeting was that addiction was a simple mistake. And that the person who said that, and maybe it came from one of the books, but the person who said that was saying, if you look at bars and grills, they all have this little subtitle that says food and spirits. And the mistake is that folks who are getting addicted to drugs or alcohol are looking for spirit, but they're looking for it in the form, and it will never be found in the form. And I remember when I heard that, something opened up inside of me, and I thought, that is so true. It is a simple mistake. We're all looking for that beautiful feeling inside, and some of us think we find it temporarily in a split second in a drink or sugar or relationships or spiritual seeking, whatever it is. But what Greg pointed to in as Harry wrote about it in that book was so profound for me. It was like, no, it's that moment when we experience the liberation of creation, the liberation of choice, that we connect with that essential spirit, and then we muck it up by thinking that what we're really after is the thing that's in the form, rather than what we've seen in the formless. So to try to make that as concrete as possible, I've always had a memory of a time in my life when I was probably 18 years old, and I went off to college for the first time at Michigan State University. And my parents took me up there, they dropped me off, and suddenly I was for the first time creating an independent life. There was nobody there to look at what I was doing or telling me what I was doing. It was just me making it up. No parents kind of in the background, sort of looking over. And I had parents who were wonderful, make no mistake about that. But on this particular day, I was there 3 days. I got a job. I got my first ever job. I went to a mall and I bought a pair of tennis shoes. And I can still remember that it was the Frandor Mall on Grand River Avenue, just inside the city limits of Lansing. It was a J.C. Penney store, and I bought a pair of white tennis shoes. And that's a flashbulb memory for me. And I've always thought that was really strange. Why would I remember buying a pair of tennis shoes in a mall? And when I read that comment in Harry's book today, it suddenly occurred to me that in that moment, even though I couldn't have described it, I was experiencing the liberation of creation, the liberation of seeing that we are all creating, and that I was experiencing at a new level the freedom to create as I saw, as I chose. And it occurred to me, oh my gosh, that's what everyone is doing when we're taking a drink, or we're eating a piece of the second piece of chocolate cake, or we're, whatever. That there is something we touch, even though we don't know we touch it, that we have the freedom to do this. We have the freedom to live in whatever body we want to. We have the freedom to be addicted or not. We have the freedom to create the life that we want. And it is all created by a thought. So fast forwarding a number of years, and this fascinates me about talking to people who are coming into the three principles understanding. I almost always find, I can't think of any real exception actually, that before people kind of intersect with the three principles understanding, they have already begun to have conscious insight. It's almost like at some level mind says, okay, so here's the understanding of what you've been seeing. So my insight was, which occurred about 2 months before I brushed up against the three principles understanding. I was simply sitting in the living room of my house in Millstone, West Virginia, and I suddenly had this experience of feeling that I was a little outside of my body, watching my experience being created. And I saw that it was being created by a thought. And as each thought came, simultaneously there was a feeling. And I watched myself have thoughts that were kind of foolish and upsetting. And I watched myself have thoughts that were, I don't know, inspiring and lighthearted, happy. And I saw my feeling level going up and down with that. And I saw, oh my gosh, life is being created from inside of me, one moment at a time. And there was such a feeling, again, that same feeling that I experienced when I bought the tennis shoes. There was such a feeling of liberation. Like, oh, I'm free. I'm free to create. I'm free to create in this life. It's mine. And it was a beautiful moment of insight. And afterwards, I thought about it. I started thinking about it. I was like, what the hell was that? I've been a psychologist now for 25 years. And I've never seen that. Nothing in my training, the credential that Harry pointed to earlier, nothing in my training pointed me in that direction. What's up with that? And I was curious. And then a couple of months later, I brushed up against the three principles understanding. But it was not an immediate sell for me. I have a pretty strong ego. And I fought it for a while. But even as I look back at that, I celebrate that. I celebrate that I had the power to choose. I celebrate that via these beautiful gifts of mind, thought, and consciousness, I can be Linda. I can be Linda as she is, and that's okay. And that's why I love talking about addiction. in this forum that I so often find when I hear people talk about addiction, there's a we they kind of thing that you hear. You know, there are the addicted and the non-addicted, and that's crap. In The Enlightened Gardener Revisited, I read a couple of days ago, I happened to pick up the book looking for another quote, and I read this and I just cried. And it was so simple. Sid Banks writes, psychological viruses are as natural as breathing. Psychological viruses are as natural as breathing. And as I even think about that now, it sort of calms me down. It just kind of relaxes me. It sort of, it just is that by the virtue of living in a brain and the way the brain works and the way the psychological and spiritual experience of life works, that moment to moment we all have moments when we don't see our freedom to choose. We don't see the power behind our ability to create. And so we create foolishly. It just is. And to get all bent out of shape, upset about it, to label it, to focus a lot of energy and thought on it, to me is entirely ridiculous now. The thing that Sid kept pointing to is that's just the way it is. We're all moving back and forth between love and judgment. But if we just remember who we are, if we just have the littlest bit of memory of who we are, this power to use these three principles to create, then we're not in the virus anymore. We're in spirit. And that's what recovery is all about, is recovering our spirit, our true spirit. Recuperating, bringing our awareness of that spirit forward consciously so that we have greater power to create in this life. A beautiful life rather than a foolish life. That about those kind of things just really fills me up. And yeah, I think I just want to listen for a bit to any questions.
One of the things that you brought up in that beautiful introduction was something that I have noticed. I guess the spiritual journey happened before you heard the principles. They are part of you. For me, it was intuitively knowing I was looking for truth, feeling it, knowing I had it, but not knowing what it was. Yeah. And the mistake I made was I associated that with the man rather than the message of the man. Yeah. And that association with the form created a tremendous amount of egotistical thinking that took a bunch of sticks of dynamite to explode away. And that's how I kind of feel about it. Addiction. It's not a very serious problem. It's really just a psychological virus, as you stated, that we have been misinformed or made a simple mistake about what it is. And I never had an opportunity to get a heavy feeling about addiction. I actually have always seen it as I hate to use this word, fun. You know, it's a beautiful, deep, never-ending journey of trying to understand, rather than it's a mystery. I love that it's a mystery, and I love that people open their hearts in ways that they don't ordinarily open. I think people who are working with people in addiction are noticing how, it's like being with kids who love you, my grandson the other day was crying, and he cuddled up to me and poured all this love into me. And I just went into this beautiful feeling. And that's kind of the feeling I have with the people in addiction. They're teaching me, oh, right, it's, we're and so I've been a little surprised that when I hand the book out to people who, they go, oh, that's a serious topic. I went, oh, right. I guess you do see it like that, type of thing. So it's a spiritual journey. I know that's the truth.
I love that, Harry. And I want to say that I feel comfortable talking about my first husband's story because he was very comfortable talking about it himself. He was a prolific leader. He would give his leads at AA meetings and was really well known. And part of it was that he was a Roman Catholic priest.
Oh, wow.
And so he would come to meetings with all of that background and understanding, and I think it helped a lot of people. But so I first met Jim. He was the most extraordinary human being. The night he was going into treatment at Guest House, which is a recovery center for alcoholic priests that's very well known up in Lake Orion, Michigan. Does great work. And he actually came into the house where I was with his sister and her soon-to-be husband with a bottle of Jim Beam. And he said, I've come to have my last celebration with Jim Beam. And then he went into treatment the next day. All I saw was a beautiful, beautiful human being. And through the years, he would say that even as a Catholic priest, he had a hard time understanding what spirit meant, what spirituality meant. That he kept looking for something. He had looked for it in the confines of the Catholic Church. He had looked for it in the structure and role of being a Catholic priest. But he didn't find it there. And he had some thinking that maybe that meant he was a failure as a priest because he just couldn't find what he was looking for. But he knew he was looking for a feeling. And he would find a little bit of that feeling of freedom and relief and peace and love and awe and beauty in that little bit of a second when the alcohol would first hit his system. And it would be like this momentary sense of escape from all the suffering that he was in. And then he would go right back into the suffering. But fast forwarding about 1.5 years later, he took a leave of absence from the priesthood. That gave us the freedom to unfold a relationship. We got married. We had a child. And he really began to see that deep inside, he had known that he was not on the right path for him. That it might have been the right path for a while, but it no longer was. And that his soul, the unfolding of his soul was pointing him in a new direction, a direction where he had the freedom to enjoy his sexuality, a direction where he had the freedom to enjoy love in the intimate form of partnership, to enjoy birthing a child. And as he lived into his ability to choose and to move in the direction that the spirit inside was guiding him, the desire to drink fell away. He was in touch with spirit and no longer had any inclination to find it in some other place. He also did stop attending AA because he said whatever I found there was not in the 12 steps. It was not in the structure. It was just in something that I glimpsed about what I was looking for and who I was, and that it was okay to be me, that was the whole purpose of being here, to be fully me and to enjoy that, to enjoy the love that is inside of me and to express that, to enjoy the creative power I have and to express it wisely. I would often find that when I worked in the addiction fields and got to know the beautiful, beautiful souls that I was sitting with day to day, week to week, that so often as I listened to them, I could see and sense that there was something unfolding within them about who they were and how they wanted to create from that in life, that for whatever reason they had a belief that they couldn't do. And the incredible distress and tension of trying to be who you are not would be like a heavy weight that they would seek release from. I think when wisdom is coming through us, Sid Banks in one place says, wisdom comes not with the roar of the lion. It comes like a lamb, softly and gently. And then he italicizes this. It is never disturbing. And I think that is so beautifully true. The spirit, the creative force within us, the love that is within us is never disturbing. However, our personal conceptual thinking can get into an uproar when we hear wisdom. Oh, I can't do that. That can't be possible. I wouldn't be liked if I did that. That would mean stepping outside of my comfort zone if I did that. That would mean giving up this insecurity if I did that. Whatever. The ego, when it, I love this, Sid uses this word jarred. When the ego senses wisdom, it gets jarred. Personal construct system gets jarred. And that's what creates the distress that we try to seek relief from in all different forms of psychological viruses. And it doesn't matter whether that virus is an addiction or something else.
And I'd like to add one thing to that, Linda. I had taught a tremendous amount of people before I went into the three principles. And one thing Sid emphasizes that when people are in a state of panic, they never can learn anything. And the other thing I noticed from what he was pointing to was when a client is disturbed, that's when they're learning. At first, I was caught with, oh, I'm doing something wrong, or because what Linda is alluding to is that truth disturbs the little mind. And that is actually very healthy, because that's when the person is actually ready. And then what we're taught is if we sit in that feeling, it will naturally evolve into what Linda was alluding to, that peace and fullness, rather than that little horizontal line. And it's very important as a teacher of anything that you understand that when the client is disturbed, they are actually what's happening is their ego in this. And if you notice yourself, me, I mean, yeah, that's the way it works as well. And yeah. Any questions for Linda? She's a very deep person. It would be great to get a little discussion. Yeah, Marnix, go ahead. Can you unmute him?
Yeah, I already unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Hi, Linda.
Hi.
Hi. And I'm not sure if this is a question. This is something that I like to keep things simple. I was an alcoholic for a long time, and it's 6.5 years ago. But I believe, and I was wondering if you would like or care to reflect on that. I believe that we all have a deep urge to come home, and that alcoholism or addiction is just one of the ways we try to get there. What do you? Do you agree?
I absolutely see that. I don't know, Marnix. And again, I'm so aware that we're all doing our very best to use language to point to what we see.
Mhm.
I don't know that I resonate with the sense of an urge. It feels to me more like that we all know who we are,
Mhm.
and we want to live in that knowing all of the time. And yet we don't see how. I often think it's kind of a joke that we didn't, as we emerge from the womb as babies, that there's not a little safety pin in our hip, on our hip, that comes with instructions about how to do life.
Yeah.
We all have to figure it out. And yet, Sid pointed to, he says something somewhere about the fact that the gift of consciousness is that we get to see both the physical and the spiritual. I get to see you and your beautiful face. I get to see all these other beautiful faces. I get to see the beautiful palm trees and sunshine outside my window. I get to experience my grandkids. I get to make love to my husband. I get to experience all of that in the physical and know a piece of my nature and my home as I do that, as I appreciate the beauty of that. And gosh, I want to be there all the time. And yet there are these psychological viruses.
Yeah.
Because I have the gift of mind, thought, and consciousness. Here's one thing I thought about is that it's so simple. And I think simply, so in order to know love, in order to know all these beautiful things, I had to have the equipment. So I had to have mind, thought, and consciousness in motion to do that. I had to have the gift of life, the gift of consciousness, to come here to do this, to create. And those gifts work a certain way. And because I didn't understand how they worked, I innocently created a lot of foolishness. So I don't experience so much an urge to go back there as much as a remembering, a knowing. Oh yeah,
Sense.
yeah, a sense. Yeah, yeah. That's with me all the time. That's the very stuff through which I'm creating this whole experience. And I have the capacity to create a comedy, which I often do.
Mhm.
I also have a capacity to create a drama, which I often do. And that's okay.
Yeah. It takes so much of the guilt and the blame out of the equation. If you can talk about this to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took me over a year to quit drinking, and especially I guess because I brought in all the stories about how hard it is to stop drinking. It's such a big part of the whole problem about quitting alcohol is that everybody says it's so difficult to do.
Yeah.
And I completely bought into that.
Yeah.
So I like it that way, and I don't want to. I always take myself as the worst example of how to quit drinking with everybody I talk to or everybody I teach, and say, oh, it's so much more easy than what I did. And especially the pointing at the fact that you want to go home. That's everything that's going on right now. And you made up some very creative stuff to get there, or at least get a taste of it. But it can be way better than that. And it's such a different conversation.
Yeah, and I hear the lightness in you, and I hear the joy in you as you talk about that. I think if my first husband were alive today, he would be so elated because he lived from a beautiful feeling, but he lacked the understanding and he was looking for it. I think he would have been just amazed. You know, his specialty was relapse. And he would often say, gosh, people are making such a big deal out of this. And it's the fact that they make it a big deal that makes it so hard for people to come back from it. Because they think, oh my God, I've completely goofed up.
I have to start all over again.
Start all over again.
Yeah.
You know, the root of the word relapse is to slide over.
Okay.
I love that. All I did was slid over, got a little trapped on a layer of consciousness, on a level of consciousness, and all I have to do is slide back. And it's all done by a thought. I mean, how simple.
And you know what, Marnix, how you ended up quitting is exactly perfect, because you had an insight, and that is when you stopped.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
how
yeah.
it works.
Yeah.
Without that insight, it's not going to just go away randomly, because we've created that habitual thought pattern in our heads, and we just go through it over and over again. It's a subconscious thought pattern. We don't even realize it's there. And like Linda brought up in the beginning of our conversation here, from Harry's book, when I talked about the point where people start feeling better is almost never when they actually put the substance in their body. It's when they make the decision that they're going to. It's oftentimes when they've actually ordered that drink at the bar that they start to feel better, long before it's ever even in their hand. You know, so it's amazing to see that and point it out for other people who are kind of stuck in that mental thought loop. You know, and just to see that changes literally everything. Just to see that we're only ever living through our thinking. And that's true now, even having this understanding of the three principles. Guess what? It still works the same way. We're not immune from getting caught up in our thinking. It's just we can see it more quickly and not take it so seriously now. There's an ease and comfort to it all. It's like, oh, okay, so what? I had that thought again. Okay, I had a drink, or I smoked a cigarette. You know, I was supposed to be done. I quit a couple of weeks ago, and I just had a cigarette. Oh no, I'm such a horrible person. No, you just had a cigarette.
Yeah.
Don't make it a big deal. It's just a cigarette. Life is far too important to take it seriously.
There's so much conditioning around this. If you quit, you quit, and if you quit quitting, then you're a loser. Or then, and I actually learned what you were telling about, that one of the roles of dopamine is the fact that it's like the glue that glues a memory together, memory with feelings, and it makes a little package of a special experience. So whenever I was at my work thinking about going home, opening the fridge and seeing the beers that I had collected for that evening, even if it was 3 hours before going home, I felt better already. And that was because I entered into that package of experience. And this is very well known about heroin addicts as well, that as soon as they know that they will be able to get their fix in a few hours, they already a lot better. And the feeling before you even have your fix is most of the time it's better than the drinking itself. That's so crazy. So it's like you're, oh yeah, okay, I'll calm down because I know that I will get my drink. But it's not in your system yet.
Right.
The other thing that people are talking about that I've experienced personally, Marnix, is if I do step into, let's say, a past repetitive pattern or what we call an addiction, it brings a tremendous amount of compassion that I have for other people who are in it. I seem more centered. The problem with spirituality is it's a very uplifting, expressive, loving, and happy. But people, you can blow people out of the water and actually miss where they're coming from in the ordinariness of the moment. It's like Sid wasn't pointing to that we have psychological viruses. He's saying we're just ordinary human beings who are ordinary, you know. And when I feel that, when I'm talking to other people, I can not only listen better, but I seem to, I'm there with them without my own image of what happiness is, woo, that, that stuff. And for me, I love that. I love that. I love that's, we could, suffering isn't actually suffering, it's connection of two ordinary human beings connecting and helping each other. Because that's really the truth. When you're with your clients, they're helping you to remember or uncover who you are, who I am.
Hello, it's David. Hi, Linda. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just soaking in the space here, appreciating it, and I guess that what I wanted to ask about is an addictive cycle with physical pain. Because that's something I experience, and also I know it's very common now with opiates and so forth. And myself, I notice food seems to be my drug of choice. But a lot, it appears that the cycle appears to relieve physical pain, and but of course that's just a short-term relief. And I'm aware of anxiety is involved as well, but it's very, very real. And actually, for me, just you're talking about just thinking about going to eat some chocolate, I don't feel better. Kind of anticipatory. I'm anticipating the drink. I don't feel that. It feels very much. Feels very chemical. In the actual stimulation somehow of the substance. So I don't know. I have many questions around that, but for now, I'll just kind of open the question to Linda and whoever else has moved to respond.
David, I was trying to listen real carefully, but
Okay.
Can you bring forward with just a little more clarity for me? It's probably a need. What is the question that you have?
Okay, the question would be, what would be a wise approach or understanding of an addiction one of whose primary motivation is to reduce physical pain?
Good question.
So physical pain actually has a very strong psychological component to it. Yes, there is obviously physical pain, and there are people who have chronic physical pain. That being said, and I've had it myself quite a bit, especially with sciatica, and I've had some other back issues, and just I've seen it for myself that a lot of the pain that I was experiencing was actually self-created. It was the suffering that I created by my thinking about that pain. Yes, the pain was there, but I compounded it. I made it worse by the stories I created about how I was always going to be in pain, and all these things that come along with it that we can create. And I've actually met quite a few people who are in pretty bad physical pain on a regular basis, and they're not suffering at all. So there's something there for our self-created experience of that pain. Suffering is optional. Pain is not. Pain is a part of it. whether it be a physical injury or the loss of a loved one or something like that, we're going to experience pain. But that continued suffering does not have to be, at least not for long. It's something that, like I said, it's our own creation of our experience. And
like 3 times a month and stuff like that. And I don't tend to think like that I can get sick with like a cold and all that. And I hardly ever get sick. And there's, you know, that's my experience with like something similar.
Well, I'd love to share a little bit of a personal experience that helped me with this very question, and it's an important question, and I get so aware that it's so easy when someone is in the grip of physical pain to feel like a lot of this is just platitude, like you don't understand how this feels. So when I had my knee replacement, I went in knowing that I'm not able to use non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. The doctor said to me, don't worry, we have a lot of opiates that we can use to help you. And I actually did get prescribed 4 different opiate medications, and but every time I would try them, I would have a terrible side effect. My heart rate would go up too high, or my blood pressure would go up, so I couldn't use those either. And so I was just in this place of horrible pain. And I've had chronic pain before, but this was really different. The level of it was really different. It was awful. And I honestly didn't know that I was going to make it through it. And every once in a while, so I'll tell my husband, but he knows I do this. Every once in a while, Bill would say something like, well, Linda, if you could just find something to be grateful for. And I would want to take him by his throat and shake him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was even a point where I pretty much told him to get out of my physical space and just leave me be in this pain. But actually, a dear friend of mine, Ellen Friedman, who is a 3 principles practitioner, and she's also by trade a physical therapist, came over one day. And she was just sitting with me, and she was, first of all, she was sitting in quiet presence, and she was massaging my knee. And in the touch felt so good, just a human connection around the touch. And then she quietly said to me, she said, you know, Linda, on my way over here, knowing that you were in the kind of pain you were in, it occurred to me that maybe it would be helpful to talk to you about the homunculus. And she said, do you know about the homunculus? And I said, well, vaguely. I kind of remember that from my anatomy and physiology. Wasn't it some kind of thing in the brain? It's called the little man in the brain. And she said, yeah, it's this sort of connection of things in the brain that forms like a mental representation of the physical body. And it looks like a little man. And that's what the word homunculus means in Latin, little man. And she said, what we know about the homunculus is that if the body is in pain and you're focusing on the pain in your body, that the area of the body that is represented on the homunculus gets, the word she used was smudgy. It grows bigger and it gets smudgy. And so right now, in your homunculus, your right knee is probably represented really big and really smudgy. And I said, okay, so what do I do about that? She said, think about something other than your right knee. You have got to rebalance the homunculus by paying attention to other parts of your body. So she told me to take all kinds of textures and rub my left knee, back of my left leg, and massage my right foot and rub my head. And I was in so much pain that I would have done anything. So no matter how silly it looked to be doing those things, I did them. And I saw immediately that my pain levels dropped dramatically to a manageable level. And what I saw was that I was seeing the gift of consciousness in action. That we have the gift of consciousness to pay attention to our pain. That's a gift. But when you are in that kind of pain, you see that you're not always paying attention to it. When my little grandson came over, and at the time he was really little, he was just a year and a month. When he came over and he climbed into my lap, I was only conscious of this beautiful baby in my lap hugging me and cooing and making sounds and just the sheer beautiful physicality of loving him. And I would completely forget the pain. And I just saw that. I mean, that's the mechanism behind those things. You know, suffering is optional. Well, it is when you understand. Without understanding, it is not optional. You are going to feel it. But if you have understanding and you see how consciousness works, and you know you have this incredible capacity that is, it's the same capacity used in two different ways, that mind and consciousness will guide you in the direction of love and not suffering. But you also have the personal gift of consciousness that you can put in service to that. Okay, I'm here with my beautiful grandbaby. I'm not paying attention to the pain in my knee, and therefore I don't experience it. It's there, but I don't experience it with quite the strength that I was before. I don't know if I can even convey that to you. What an incredible insight that was for me to think about, to experience that in the physical level. Consciousness makes a huge difference. Level of consciousness makes a huge difference. And it absolutely helped me move to a place where I calmed down about the pain. I even found myself, I know this is going to sound a little weird, kind of seeing it as a sacred experience, in the sense that I thought, there are people all over who are experiencing this kind of pain, physical and emotional. And this is just a reminder of how much people hurt. And it's an opportunity for me to learn inside myself how I walk through this. And then, interestingly, as I started to be able to think about it that way, it greatly lessened to the point that I was able to tolerate it more and move forward. Harry, you share a beautiful story in this book from the indigenous peoples, and I don't pretend to understand it, but it's the story of Black Spirit horse.
Yeah, the black horse spirit. This is ancient wisdom. That's all it is, ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
It's a story that's brought, and the black horse spirit, I'm not going to tell the story, you could read it in the book, but it takes away the urge. Now, that doesn't make sense intellectually, and certainly from the white man world, it doesn't make sense. But it actually, when the shaman who tells this story, who is from the old wisdom, the spirit comes in, and it was done at a point where there was a 12-step recovery people who were there, and I could feel it take away the urge, my urge. And then I saw the people experience that. And that's what the power of spirit is. It's so small and simple. You can miss it with your mind. And almost everybody there then walked out, had that urge evaporate, but then reignite it with their thinking, their old thinking. That's why the principles are so powerful. The urge was removed. But if you start the same thing that created the urge, you will recreate it in about 10 minutes. And so it left me with, first, David said he loves the word sacred, the sacredness of that experience and the power of spirit to heal, and also the why the three principles are so powerful. is because the power of thought can, if we don't experience what we are in the moment, we then step back into the past. And so that was a twofold experience. But the black horse spirit did remove the urge. So if the urge can disappear like that, all we have to do is not reignite it. I know that to be true. It is just a thing. That's just a thing. But we have, you know, it is a big thing in our minds and so on. So,
and that black horse spirit story, I'm sure, can be understood on many different levels. But I would encourage you all to read it. It's a beautiful story. And you pointed to something, Harry, that I love, that, you know, I didn't ask Sid a lot of questions. I had a lot of opportunities. I sat with him. But when I was with him, my mind got so quiet, I just couldn't think of anything to ask. I'd be like in this stupor, like, oh my gosh, you know, just filled. But when I did ask him, I said, Sid, so in my training as a psychologist, we've been taught that there are necessary and sufficient conditions for change to occur in psychotherapy. And essentially the root message is that love is enough. And so is it, Sid? Is love enough? And he started to cry. And he said, no, Linda, love is not enough. Love and understanding are enough. And I wished, now that I think about it, I wish I'd said, well, what is understanding? But instead I just went, oh, okay. Because again, my mind went completely quiet. But now I think what you're pointing to, Harry, is so beautiful. It's the understanding of the principles. It's the seeing what is behind life. It is seeing that we are spirit, that and the logic of how that works, as shown in the three principles, is that's what allows us to be in that beautiful place of continuous.
and we're always in it, whether we're aware of it or not. And that became obvious sitting with Sid, or sitting in the black horse spirit. We are experiencing pure love and understanding, but the understanding is, did you bring yourself along in that experience, or did you just feel it from the outside and, oh, I feel better? But that's not spirit. Spirit is coming this way. I am part of the experience is more important than, oh, I feel better.
I think
Awesome.
Jason has a, right?
Yeah, Jason and Tanya also.
Hello.
Hi, Jason.
Hi, Linda.
Hello.
Yeah, I wanted to share something about an experience I had on Friday. I mean, I've had 25 years of 12-step recovery of total abstinence, and I was always the person that I was like the end of the line guy, you know, like when no one else could help, they kind of got sent to me. Anyone who was a serial relapser, I don't know where that came from, it's just something that happened over the time. And a friend had rang me, and he'd been missing for a couple of years, and he'd remembered my number and called me. And he rang me last week and said, look, I'm in real trouble, you know, like he said, I've got to get back to a meeting, you know. So I was like, this is an interesting opportunity that's been sent to me. So I rather than say to him, hey, you don't need to go to meetings, it's just your thoughts. which was a funny thing that just came to me immediately in the moment. But like, I said, okay, cool. So he said, when do you go to meetings? I mean, and I haven't gone to meetings for ages, because it's like I find them quite a struggle to be there. I said, okay, I'll meet you and go for some food with you. So I met him on Friday. I went for some food with him, and we went to a meeting, you know. And it was like, I didn't want to, he said it was great. He said, oh, I felt at home, so much at home. And I thought, all I can do is just be present and keep talking to him, and sharing my own experience. And I shared my own experience in the meeting. It's kind of like I shared my experience of stopping looking for character defects and looking for assets, looking for the happiness, like the experiences that I've had, the freedom that I've got. I talked about learning to listen. I talked about presence. I talked about all the things that I've got from the principles in the meeting. And now, I know I'm making this up, but it's like clear, but it felt so hostile, and it made me really like people contradicting what I'd said, people questioning, it was difficult. And it made me really consider, how protective people are over their misunderstanding, just like that one misunderstanding has replaced another misunderstanding. But like they see it as like life or death, and that they'll get angry and aggressive and do anything to protect that, and it was like, I was okay. I left there feeling good. It didn't affect me, but it just made me, and this was what I was, when you were saying before about struggling for questions, like I get like that too. And often when there's a lot of wisdom, I just kind of like to listen. But the question that came to me was like there's people there who clearly need help. There's people there that I can help, and it's like, how to put this question, but like my question to myself was kind of like, how long do I come here? Do I keep coming here, or do I just not come here? Because it's like, it seems like there's people who need help, and I've got something to share, an experience that I've had, because I was those people too. And like, at what point does it make sense to stop doing that,
I don't know the answer that you will find, Jason, for that. But what helps me to, as I consider that question for myself in terms of what I want to do, is that I know, and I know you know too, that wisdom is always coming through people, even when they're very stirred up. It's not that mine says, "Oh, you're too stirred up," so I'm not gonna speak to you right now. We have all these crazy images of God that create some pretty conceptual conundrums and misbeliefs. But that mind, that guidance, that love, that spirit behind life is always coming through. And I see my role as nothing more than and nothing less than a listener, to hear it and bring it forward. So like yesterday, I was in a hot tub at the gym, and this lady started to make conversation with me. Well, it turned out that she was a social worker, and she had a lot of years experience, and she's a crisis worker for the Red Cross, and she asked me, what's your training? And I said, well, I'm a psychologist, been a psychologist for 35 years. And she said, well, what do you do now? And I said, well, my husband and I have a business. We share something called the 3 Principles. What was curious to me is she didn't ask me any questions about that. She just began to talk about her work. And I thought, I'm just listen here. She already knows this. She already has this understanding. She is it. And all I have to do is listen. And I got as present as I knew how to be. And I listened to the story she was telling me. And I listened and I listened. And about 20 minutes in, there it was. She told me about an intervention she did with someone else that was perfectly harmonious with the logic of the principles.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really excited, and I said, oh my gosh, that is beautiful. What you said to that person is beautiful. Can I share how I would just put different words on it a little bit, and how it points to something that my husband and I teach? And she said, yeah. And I told her. She had a reaction, and I was like, that's cool. She heard something. the ego got a little jarred because she thought her intervention worked in a certain way, and actually it worked in an entirely other way. It helped the person's mind quiet down, and they saw that a memory is nothing more than a thought carried through time. And then at the end of the conversation, she gave me her business card. So she went in the locker room, she looked me up, she gave me her business card, and she said, I don't know what I heard, but something happened inside. I'm going to go look at your website. And I don't know if she ever will. I'm going to reach out and try to talk to her. But the point of that story is that two things, Jason, and I know you know this, is that when people at those meetings get kind of stirred up after wisdom and truth have been shared, to me that, like Harry pointed out, he said he gets excited. I see that as a sacred, beautiful thing, that truth, when I'm able to speak as clearly as I can from my heart and spirit in truth, and I can't always, but when I can, I know that enters the heart of the people I'm talking to. And that the most natural thing is for the ego to get a little jarred and fight that a little, and that's okay. And I also know that, as Sid pointed out so beautifully, that underneath all the conceptual thinking, there is always a perfectly healthy, wise human being. And we never know. You know, I know you all know here from having followed a little bit about this understanding, that you can hear something on a webinar and then 2 weeks later, suddenly, oh wow. If I see something, I think I heard something, oh wow, and something shifts inside. We just never know when that's going to happen for people. So even though, like you, as a psychologist in the helping community, I muck around in a whole set of disciplines that is searching, and often when truth starts to come through can be reluctant, just have great faith in the understanding. And great faith that it's already there. I mean, isn't that a beautiful thing? It's not that when I first heard about the principles that suddenly they were operating perfectly in me. They've been operating perfectly in me since I drew my first breath. They just are. I am them. And yet sometimes I have used them in ways that has caused a lot of distress, and sometimes I have been wise about my use of them and enjoyed a tremendous amount of happiness and contentment. That's true of everybody. It's always there, so I just don't get put off by upset in the face of what I'm sharing, or a weddedness to an old way. Part of it was that I was very wedded to the old way. It took me 2 years to become a student.
Sorry, I missed that. To become
A student.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Took me 2 years. Bill kept trying to help me see. And the more he tried to help me see, the more resistive I got. And then there was a place where he just stepped back and he said, you know, Linda, you are a beautiful human being and you help so many people. And I love you no matter what. I love you whether or not you ever see one tiny thing about this three principles understanding. And I felt that. And in that feeling of being loved, no matter what my understanding was, I was free again to follow and find my own way toward it. And I just really respect that in other human beings.
Yeah, I really like what you said then. I loved about it. I could see, as you spoke, that it was my misunderstanding of the response, you know, but I never just saw it as like people's ego getting jarred. I did think like, yeah, people don't like the truth, but it's like I never really saw it as clearly as like saying when wisdom's shared in the room that people get protective over their reality or something. So actually, what that says is that, you know, it was a good thing, whereas I saw it as hostility. You know, it was kind of like something that I didn't want to be around, and like a reason to not really go and do that again. But actually, it's quite the opposite. So thank you for that.
I think when Marnik said earlier, you know, that we all have used the word urge, we all want to go home. We all want to go home. That's universal. That's absolutely trustworthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We also have Tanya with her hand up. Let's see.
Hi, Tanya.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, you're good to go.
Hopefully the wind isn't gonna interrupt my. Is that okay?
Good. It's good.
Okay, good. I'm in Orlando visiting from Canada, so I'm in the sun, just chilling, but chiming in. And listening to some great stuff here. I think I just want to speak to the pain thing that was brought up of, you know, how do people experiencing physical pain, you know, use opioids, drugs, and then get addicted, and then what happens after that. So I'm going to just point to, I think, you know, I work at a safe injection site for our folks, mostly homeless folks who are addicted to fentanyl, heroin, you know, hydromorphs, any kind of drug that you can inject. And, you know, it's just, I just don't want to dismiss our population that is marginalized, that don't have the resources to access what most of us do, in the sense that, Linda, thank you for your story about, you know, you got the massage for your knee when it was in pain, and you had these, you know, people helping you. I just don't want to dismiss the fact that most of our folks that we see, you know, homeless and addicted, don't have that kind of resource or luxury to sort of get past that. So of course the repetitiveness of addiction is going to happen because of, say, you know, no food, no home, no shelter, no love, no et cetera, et cetera. So what I've kind of learned is, how do I meet these folks where I'm at? And my understanding is, and I think, Jason, this speaks to sort of you saying, how do we, you know, help or say what we say to people that are like spinning. And what I've learned is just to meet people where they're at and sort of just hold a space, you know, at the site, and just I don't even talk about solutions, because some people don't want to quit. Some people don't want to, you know, they might not want to hear solution based stuff. They want to just have a human to human contact where they can feel okay and actually, you know, not judged by what they're doing, which is injecting drugs daily. So I think I just wanted to point out that there's a population that we kind of miss when we're talking about, you know, the three principles, if you will, or solutions or resolutions or rehab or 12 steps. There's a population that just want to be loved and appreciated and okay with where they're at. I think that's it for me.
Tanya, one thing I will say, and all I can say is, this is my experience, so it's just offered, is that when I began to learn about the three principles understanding, I was working in Appalachia. I spent most of my clinical career in Appalachia. So I don't know.
What is epilepsy? Sorry, epilepsy? What's Appalachia?
Appalachia, the Appalachian Mountains.
I don't even, okay, sorry. I didn't know what that meant. Sorry.
Okay,
so got you.
So it's one of the poorest regions of the United States. It has an overwhelming percentage of the poorest counties in this country. I don't know where you're from, but it's extreme poverty. And this is just my experience, so I'm only offering it, is that one of the things that I loved, and it's also an intensely religious area, so very fundamentalist Bible Belt, right? One of the things that I loved about the three principles is that I could share them with people who had nothing, and I could share Sid's books. I read them to people sometimes because they couldn't read. And something really, really beautiful would happen.
Right, right. And Linda, I don't dismiss any of this. I'm just saying most of my people don't want to hear anything rather than just me being there as a human to human person and me having my understanding. I used to try to push my beliefs and my understandings, not put, okay, maybe that's a strong word, but try to share that with them. And I'm telling, there's a population that doesn't want to hear that right now, that are heavily addicted to fentanyl and are dying every day of overdose. I'm just saying I don't want to dismiss, as we're in addiction sort of format here, I don't want to dismiss that population because it's a harm reduction population who chooses to still use daily and don't want to hear about why we're feeling so loving and free and kind. I'm just saying that being on an addiction format, that's all. So basically saying, you know, with our understanding, because I know, because I was homeless 11 years ago. I was addicted to many drugs. I had lost my son for a year and a half. For me, I just wanted someone to just sit with me and be a human contact, just to say, okay, I understand, I've been where you've been, and I'm not going to try to push or share anything, just to be there. And I think we need to sort of share a little more of just that principle rather than fixing or trying to share you know, the 3 principles on people. That's all I'm trying to share on this today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I've seen the power in just sitting with somebody without even speaking. Yeah, and I'm sure you know that.
Absolutely, would be the first.
Absolutely, yeah. And that energy that energy that we exude because of our understanding is more powerful than words. And I think everyone who is sort of tapped into this can agree with that. Yeah. That's it. Sorry. Thanks, guys, for letting me
And the
share.
wisdom will guide us on how to approach each person. You know, because there's I have some experience myself with homeless people, and there's some who identify themselves as victims, and there's some who don't.
Yeah, that are okay with being homeless, that are okay with being tenting and injecting. There is a population, and God bless them, right?
Yeah.
Like that's them. That's what.
So we all have our place, and it's beautiful that you're able to connect like that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's you know, it's not necessarily for everybody. Not everybody's that comfortable hanging out with people who are actually shooting up in front of them.
Right. Exactly.
That's, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a very different kind of experience right there. And it's a wonderful thing to do that for people and just be present for them.
Yeah, I feel blessed. I feel
but
blessed.
I don't think anything that we were talking about today was meant to exclude anybody, you know, any more than saying I like the color blue.
No. I'm just including
like every other color. It's, you know, this understanding just applies across the board.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's beautiful that you're doing that kind of work. It's necessary.
Yeah.
You know?
I just want to include our people that are in that population. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Tanya, the sharing of the feeling that you're talking about is the 3 principles without words. You put your hand on someone's shoulder just as an image.
Oh, no, I have shorts on.
That will help them 1,000 times more than talking about the 3 principles. And I think that's a big part of your point, is to be there at the level that they need is what Sid was talking about.
Sure, of the feeling, of course. That's what I think. Yeah. Yep. Awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Linda. This has been absolutely amazing. Do you have any kind of like closing words? Nothing major, just something really profound that's going to change everybody's lives.
That's right.
So no pressure.
No, just I have enjoyed each and every person and contribution, and just even the quiet listening presence. That's really beautiful. Thank you.
And one of the beauties of our show is, as I'm sure you see, we're all talking about the 3 principles, but Linda's bringing in her unique feeling of what she has experienced. And it doesn't feel the same as the last guest. or the guest before. This is Linda's expression of it. And of course, we're touched because she has uncovered something profound that has elevated all of us to participate with her. And that's, as Greg and I have these different guests, it's very noticeable that each one is experiencing their journey in their own unique way. And yet it's all it is it's spiritual. I just love the flavor of what we're all bringing, and the question, each question brings in that flavor from that person, and it helps elevate, and I'm going to emphasize, break my own beliefs, which I love, to be honest. And this area is fantastic for that. We think we know. I am becoming very aware that is a problem with Harry Durbitsky. And so thank you from Greg and I, of course, and thank you, Linda, for sharing that beautiful, deep, profound feeling that you're alluding to.
And we're all stuck with the limitation of words, aren't we? I mean, and I love that Sid kept saying, look beyond the words, because as soon as you try to put this in the form of words, you're already removed from its power. But just as I listen to the feeling that everyone speaks from, I know we're already there. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll see everybody next time. And
then
the recording will be up on YouTube within an hour or two after we end here. So.
And certainly share it with whoever, Linda and so on. It's, the specialness of this topic that I love is that it's not just a generic application. It's a specific application that has a spiritual answer. The same spiritual answer that to every other question.
Which is love. Love you all.
And understanding.
Love and understanding.
Love and
this
see.
was awesome. Thank you guys so much.